Okay, everybody, the day you've been waiting for is finally here. The first annual Bandana Awards! In this video, I am going to award 11 bandanas in random categories of my choosing to my favorite books that I read in the year 2023. So hi, my name is Talia. I love books. I love bandanas. I'm so glad you are at my channel today. I'm really excited about this video because I just get to talk about my favorite books that I read last year. So this is books not necessarily published in 23, just came into my life in 2023. Bookworm is here because he didn't want to be left out of all the excitement, so he came from the back shelf to front and center stage today to help me out and for moral support, I guess. So we're just gonna jump right into it and talk about my favorites. Okay, so the first category is best middle grade. For me, a really good middle grade is one that is not designed only for middle grade students. I feel like some middle grade is just only can be read and enjoyed by younger readers. Adults, it's just too cheesy or too silly, or just it doesn't vibe well, some of these middle grade books. However, really good middle grade books for me are books that are appropriate and can be read by younger students, but also make you feel something deeply as an adult as well. So my choice for favorite middle grade novel is Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan. I loved this book so much. I actually don't have my copy right now because I gave it to my aunt to read and she loved it as well. But this is about our main character is doesn't really fit in with her peers. She's very intelligent, has a hard time interacting with her classmates. She has this counselor who is supposed to be like helping her, like the student guidance like counselor, and he's just like completely worthless. And they're kind of all like scheming against her, saying she's just like cheating on the tests, like even though she's really intelligent, doing really well. It's just like a mess for this poor child. And to make matters worse, then she loses both of her parents in an accident, so then she's basically orphaned. So it starts very like sad and you're like, what am I reading, man? But then it turns in a way that is so uplifting, and you have like this crappy guidance counselor and a couple of her other student friends or like acquaintances that don't really fit in. They end up like coming together to take care of her in this like found family story that is so beautiful. It was just so well done, and seeing just the transformation of characters, particularly for this guidance counselor, was just really entertaining. There's lots of like light moments of humor woven in, and I just loved it. I cannot recommend that book enough if you're looking for something either for your middle graders or just something for you to read as well, for like a heartwarming, easy to digest story. That is one you should get. So this bandana goes to you, Counting for Sevens. Okay, for best book about animals, I read kind of a lot of random animal stories throughout the past year, but my favorite by far was How to Be a Good Creature by Cy Montgomery. Cy Montgomery, she just has such a unique life in that she has grown up with animals and then studied animals for her career, but also has just like brought lots of animals into her home. And so she has so many good animal stories. So How to Be a Good Creature, she just kind of, it's like a memoir where she takes you through like from her dog to her pig to studying emus in, I can't remember where, it must have been somewhere in Africa, and just what she learned from these animals and how these animals impacted her and made her view humanity differently. And it was just so well done. Just warm feelings all around. Definitely some sad parts, but definitely just makes you think about all the creatures and just the way they survive and the things that these animals innately know how to do, and just like what we can learn from these animals. So I thought that was just amazing. That was an audiobook that I listened to, so I do not have the physical book for that as well. So here you go. How to Be a Good Creature. Here's your bandana. Okay, best mystery. You know I'm going to Agatha Christie because she is the queen of mystery for a reason. She is so good at just creating stories that suck you in, and she always surprises you. Like, I'll think I'll have this like down. I'm like, I have this figured out, and then you're like, nope, nope. Didn't at all. So I read a few Agatha Christie last year. My favorite was The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. This was just so good. It had me questioning till the end. Of course, Roger Ackroyd is murdered. You're trying to figure out who did it. It takes place in like this big like house, which is really like, I don't know, I feel like she did a great job like describing the house and making you feel like you were in it with these other people and the mystery. And yeah, I was just engaged from beginning to end, and loved the ending so much. I thought it was great. So Agatha Christie, Murder of Roger Ackroyd, you have won a bandana. Okay, best thriller. So thriller is a category I have not read a lot of throughout the years, but I've kind of been getting more into it. And my favorite thriller of last year was Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. And this book starts out like first couple pages with this woman burying her husband. And you're just like, well, that's no good. And then it flashes forward right away to like, I can't remember, it's like 3 or 6 months, like a relatively short period of time where she's on her honeymoon with this husband. And they're on this like beautiful island, Fiji or somewhere magical. So the whole book, you're moving forward towards this time where you know she's going to be burying him, but you're like, well, how the heck does it get from this to this? And like I'm not going to say too much more because like crazy things happen in this book, but I thought it was really well done. I loved it. And I was so bummed because I read another book by Catherine Steadman after that I did not enjoy as much. So I was like, are you a one-hit wonder? Because that was such a good book. But definitely Something in the Water, library book. So to the library, this bandana, you get Something in the Water. Congratulations. Okay, for best sci-fi, we have to go with Vengeful and Vicious. I'm putting them together because I loved them both equally. V.E. Schwab, masterpieces. I loved these so much. And sci-fi is kind of another category I haven't read a lot of. But after reading Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is not really sci-fi, it's more just fantasy, I picked these up, and these are definitely more sci-fi. We have 2 college students, Eli Ever and Victor Vale. They are trying to figure out how people basically can get superpowers, and they come to discover that you get a superpower if you have like a near-death experience, like if you're run over and your heart stops for a couple minutes and you come back, and like then you can have like a secret power or like a superpower and be like able to do something like walk through walls or you know, whatever, any superpower, name it. That's how they come to be. So these college kids decide that they want to be superpowerish, have superpowers, and they try to give themselves their own life or death, like near-death experiences in order to get these powers. So and this is all right at the beginning of the book, so not spoilering. So they go through with it and get powers, and then we go from there, and a whole lot of crazy stuff happens. And man, I loved it so much. One of the characters in particular, she makes you like more than the other characters, so you're kind of like leaning towards one of the characters, but it definitely has different viewpoints, and you're kind of following like these 2 guys as they become superheroes. And not superheroes, they're not like superheroes, but they have like powers that other people don't have, and they end up being kind of like against each other, and that's all I'm gonna say. So definitely these recommend. I loved them so much. Which one should we give to you? We'll give you this one. Okay, so get organized. So, vengeful and vicious, here's your bandana. Congratulations. So, I hesitated before calling this category book that changed my life the most because I feel like that might be a little bit overdramatic. But this book really did have such a big impact on my life this year, and it is Kinfolk by Sean Dietrich. So if you've been around my channel any length of time, you've probably seen me talk about this one. This was a NetGalley pick actually, and I pre-ordered the copy to be delivered to me on release day because I loved it so much. So I have my physical copy now. But I just loved this book. We follow our main character. His name is Nub Taylor, and he is just kind of like, he's like mid-60s, stuck in his way. At the beginning of the book, he like crashes in his drunk driving and is just kind of a hot mess of a man. And he ends up taking in this pregnant teenager who is her mother is gone, her dad's in prison, and just through this like unlikely sequence of events, he ends up like taking her in, and everyone's like, what are you doing? You can't take care of a teenager, you know what I mean? But it kind of goes into like some of his backstory and things that have happened in his life and what he has gone through, and it is just such a beautiful story of found family. Like, I love it so much. And it's so funny because after reading this book, I was like, well, who the heck is this Sean Dietrich? Like, I'm like, Sean of the South, like, who is this guy? So I started researching more about Sean Dietrich, and he is just an amazing human being. He actually lost his father to suicide when he was a young kid, and kind of like ties some of that into this story, even though this is a work of fiction. And he has a blog post that he posts every day of just stories that have happened or that he has heard of. And he's all about just like building people up and encouraging people and writing fiction. He has a couple of nonfiction as well that just is encouraging and tackles tough issues and tough things that have happened, but in a way that like kind of shines light on humanity. And I think a lot of times in our country and culture, you can just be like, oh, everything's crap, you know, everything is like not going well, everything's terrible. And he kind of he pushes back against those ideas. So definitely a Sean Dietrich fan. I'm going to talk about one of his other books later in this video because I've read several more of his work. But as far as like changing my life and like kind of perspective on things and a new author that I am following like a daily blog post for, this book definitely changed my life a little bit. So let's give you the mermaid. I feel like Sean Dietrich would appreciate that. You get the mermaid bandana. Okay, the next category is favorite main character, and this is actually also a book that I found out about on NetGalley. So How to Be Remembered by Michael Thompson has my favorite character of the year in it. And this character's name is Tommy, and Tommy has a unique problem. Every year on Tommy's birthday, everyone forgets who he is. So the book starts on Tommy's very first birthday. He is living his dream life with his parents. They're all excited to have this 1-year-old the next day. They go to bed. They wake up the next morning. They have no recollection of ever having a child. They're like, what is this baby doing in our house? We have no idea. They call like the police and then Child Protective Services. They're like, this is not our baby. We don't know who this baby is. And also like all the baby stuff is gone from the house too. So like there's no evidence of like they did have a baby. They're just like, this baby just is in our house. You know, they have no clothes, nothing. All that Tommy keeps with him is the stuff that's on his back, the clothes that are on his back every year, right? So he ends up being removed from that home and placed in an orphanage, and it kind of just goes from there. Like, he ends up being in this group home, and every year on his birthday, like anything he's collected over the year disappears, any like possessions or art or anything, everything disappears except for his clothes that are on his back every year. So being in this group home, it's like they're just kind of like, how'd this kid get here? We don't know. We don't have any paperwork on him, like every year. And then as Tommy gets older, he realizes, he figures it out, and every year before his birthday, he just starts mentally preparing that, hey, no one is going to remember me. So we follow the story of Tommy through like childhood to adulthood, when he's trying to like hold down a job, get an education, do all this stuff. And I feel like the reason I love Tommy was because he just never gave up, and he never like felt bad for himself. And he tries to beat the system as the story goes on. He tries to figure out ways to be remembered and figure out ways to like make himself known to the world, even though he knows everyone's gonna forget him. And I just I loved his character. I just feel like he was a perfect example of persevering through tough times, and it was done in like this kind of fantasy way, and I just really enjoyed it. So Tommy, this one is for you. I read quite a bit of fantasy last year, and I will say none made me feel the way that Nancy Boys by Neil Gaiman made me feel. That book was phenomenal. I loved how it was like, it's like his books are like built into real world settings where you're like, okay, I get it, like I understand this world. And then it's like these magical elements come in and you're like, whoa, I was not expecting that. What is going on? So we start this book following Fat Charlie. And he's not really that fat, I don't think. That's just kind of the name that he has picked up through childhood, and everyone, even his fiance, calls him Fat Charlie. So Fat Charlie's father passes away, and shortly after that, he realizes that he finds out that he actually had a brother, and this brother's name is Spider. And he ends up meeting Spider and also realizing that his father was not just a normal father, he was actually like the god of spiders. And I'm gonna kind of leave it there. I will say it was just super entertaining. It's like these brothers and they don't get along, and Spider's doing all this stuff that like messes with Fat Charlie. He's just kind of being naughty and mean. And then there's like some magical elements that come into play, and I just really liked it. I feel like I'm terrible at explaining like fantasy novels, and you don't want me to explain like the details of it, so it's probably good to just shut it down. But it was really entertaining. Had kind of the found family elements with this like long lost brother, and you know I dig the found family vibes. So definitely one that gets a bandana for the year. So The Nancy Boys by Neil Gaiman, this one is for you. Best adventure story is another book by Sean Dietrich. So there's a lot of adventure stories out there, right? And especially nonfiction, and I feel like some of them can be kind of dry. And they're still worth reading because like they're good adventure stories and you're like, whoa, look at all they persevered. How'd they climb that mountain or sail across that ocean or fill in the blank? But You Are My Sunshine by Sean Dietrich was an adventure story that made me laugh so hard. So Sean and his wife had a health scare at one point, and during this health scare, she decided like, hey, we need to do something big. And Sean's like, well, what? Like, what do we want to do that's big? And she's like, we're gonna take this bike ride. And Sean's like, well, I'm afraid of riding bikes. Okay, first hilarious part. Sean is literally like afraid of riding bikes. So to take this bike ride, instead of riding a normal bike, he rides like this like three-wheeler like trike thing, and he's continuously like making fun of himself throughout the story and like saying how other people were like kind of making fun of his trike throughout the story. Anyways, so they take this, it's like this East Coast trail. I cannot remember, sorry for whacking you, bookworm. I cannot remember where the trail takes place, but it's like several hundred miles that they take this adventure on their bicycles. And they keep getting separated because Sean's really slow on his tricycle, and like there's this fear of snakes that keeps coming up, and there's like torrential downpours, and just like they're trying to give up at one point and they're like, no, let's keep going. And it was just such a sweet story of just like how solid they are in their relationship, because Sean and Jamie are like peas and carrots. Like they're so cute. And just Sean's like raw sense of humor and his like ability to make fun of himself. Man, it was so good. It was just so funny. I loved it. Loved that book. So Sean Dietrich, here's another one for you. You Are My Sunshine. Amazing. My favorite series of the year is not going to surprise you. It was The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I have recommended this to several people who have also read it and loved it. So I think this is also my most recommended book of the year if you need like a fun, easy to read escape from reality. This is the second one in the series because my friend still has my Cinder copy, which is the first one. But this is just great. They're fairy tale retellings. Each one is based on a individual like fairy tale, like Cinderella or Little Red Riding Hood or what's her name with the long hair? My brain is dead today. Rapunzel. And they all are set in this like futuristic world where there is this evil queen on the moon and she is trying to take over the earth. And it's the story of these modern day fairy tales, modern day princesses, basically. They're not princesses in the book though, they're just like normal people who are trying to stop that from happening. So 4 books in the series plus another like half book and another like book of short stories. It's all so good. I've finished everything but the short stories at this point, and I just love this series. I think it's a great escape. I think it's perfect for anyone who just wants to read something fun and be entertained. Like this series is amazing. So here's a bandana for you. Okay. The last book for 2023 is the book that I still to this day have no idea really what it was about. And that is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. So here's what I know. I enjoyed reading this book. I loved all like, how many pages of this book? 498 pages of this book were super entertaining. I didn't feel confused when I was reading it. It's like I was reading it and the whole time you're reading it, you're like, okay, I can visualize what's happening. I can visualize what's happening. And then there'd be like a connection like, oh, this connects to this, this connects to this. But then like you get to the end and you're like, I've taken so many paths that I have no idea what happened or how I got here. So yeah, that's all I can say. Like this book was weird and so good, and I don't know really what the point of it was, but it gets a bandana, so there you go. So that does it. That summarizes my favorite 11 books in random categories for the year 2023. What was your favorite book that you read in 2023? Did any of these make it on your list? Are you curious to read any of these after this list? Let me know. That's all I have for you today. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. I hope you take some time today to read a good book or two. And if you are having a bad hair day, just wear a bandana. Bye.